So please be upright and comfortable. And for some of us, this may be the first time we are actually stopping and sitting for a little while. And there can be quite a lot of running around and busyness around Christmas and the New Year, since we have adopted these festivals in India as well. And in any case, our lives are quite busy, are they not? Busy in more ways than one. So that even when we, excuse me, even when we are seated, mind is working over time, heating up, churning various matters, like a cow chewing the cud. We keep on conceptualizing this, that, and the other. So this is something that we can at least be aware of. We cannot stop it immediately, and neither should we feel we need to do that, but we can become more aware of what's happening in our minds. This was Lord Buddha's one of his great offerings to us, reminding us that although we do seek to find the answers and the blame and everything outside of ourselves, that is totally the wrong place to be looking. And that we need to work with this consciousness, this so-called mind. So-called because it's a label, it's hard to exactly pinpoint what is mind. But we know there are a whole spectrum of perceptions, feelings, emotions, images, memories, intentions, and so on and so forth, arising and dissolving one after the other. And also mind acting as a propelling force, mediator of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and touch. You could say those are 5 channels, and the 6th channel, the most important one, is mind, consciousness. So that's what we're working with. So we are the lucky ones, we are the happy, lucky ones who have stumbled across this teaching, investigating it, working with it. We're not totally lost in the world of the 5 senses plus the projections of the 6th channel, the mind. We're not totally lost in it. We get lost, but then we become a little bit aware of what's going on. So how wonderful if that opportunity that could extend to others, other beings could get the benefit, receive the benefits of this. But alas, right now, beings of the 6 realms are drowning in their confusion. We see it everywhere. And as Shantideva says, how pitiful to see these beings who, wish for happiness, and yet, due to kind of ignorance of the worst kind of unknowing, they're creating causes for sorrow. And even when we know what is good for us, know very well in many ways, still due to the power of habitual patterns, we act in a way that is not conducive to peace, harmony, so forth. So here we have the chance to remedy that. We can begin to slow down, pay attention to what's happening, to make friends with ourselves after perhaps a very, very long time. According to Lord Buddha, it could be thousands, millions of lifetimes since we have adopted an intelligent and friendly attitude towards ourselves. So much have we been just dominated by very, very counterproductive habitual patterns of thinking, speaking, and behaving with body. So I think I'm going to engage in the session of listening, reflecting, discussing, practicing some stabilizing meditation. I'm going to do this in order to be of some benefit to myself and others. And to help, please begin to dissolve this fixation we have on me, on I, this vague, often very powerful sense of some kind of singular, unique, independent I, me, that has many needs, many wants, many problems, etc., etc. Friends, enemies, all of it. So we can hope to soften that very strong self-image. Also, we should motivate that we come to terms with impermanence and death. Not just in a physical sense, but the inner sense. Dying to what is stale and gone. Dying to that and being fresh and awake in the present moment as much as we can. So we can begin to do that by paying attention to our breath, natural breath in and out through the nostrils. Like a watchful parent or dog owner, we watch very carefully that the young dog child is not engaging in something inappropriate or harmful. And when necessary, we gently and patiently nudge that being back to wholesomeness. So we also nudge our mind back to the breath when it gets caught up in the vast possibility of distractions and so forth. We let them go, and come back to the breath. Sensation of the breath. not getting caught up, not getting, not identifying with all of the extraordinary material that pops up in the mind. Just viewing it as one would, as a wise old grandparent just watching a movie. Grandchild is very excited by the movie, excited, upset, whatever, depending on the scene. But the grandparent can just watch with perhaps occasionally a slight smile in the corner of the mouth, not going up and down with the movie in an uncontrolled way. Certainly not getting emotionally imbalanced or upset, or overexcited or distracted. Here, of course, we're also we're avoiding drowsiness, maintaining a sense of wakefulness. Welcome, newcomers here. Visual is on the screen. Goodbye. Would you tell Panala he's welcome to make his own tea? And if he wants to make some extra, he can. Then speak with him. Bas bata dena. Thanks. Yeah, acha. Huh? Happy New Year. Oh, Happy New Year, Bob. Happy New Year. You look like Father Christmas, but wrong color hat, cap. Okay. So, thank you everyone online. So, as I said, we'll have some, initially let's go over some basic material, which this teacher, Geshe Rabten, teacher of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, also puts so clearly in his introduction to the stages of the path practice, in a book called The Essential Nectar, which is a short stages of the path text by somebody called Yeshe Sundru, who lived late 18th, early 19th century. So Geshe Rabten has written a commentary on that. There's the root text as well as commentary by Geshe Rabten. But in the introduction to this text, to this book, which is a wisdom publication book, by the way, he gives some very, very good basic material. And I'm not going to go through all of it because there's a lot, and we do want to get back to Shantideva as well. But I did want to speak about how to avoid certain problems and how to study the teachings, how to avoid problems that arise while we're trying to practice meditation or study or whatever. And I was very surprised to find this somehow. I shouldn't have been, but I was very surprised to find the way that Geshe Rabten had approached this material in this book. And this is something that he put together in the, that he was writing about in the 70s. Of course, he knew Western students very well by then. He had taught in Dharamsala and then moved to Switzerland. So he knew the Western mind, or we might say now the modern mind, since that kind of mind, in a sense, has become very pervasive around the globe. We're not living 200 years ago where, the way people were educated in England and Western Europe, totally different beings, in a sense, from those who lived in most parts of India or anywhere else, actually. But now we all have similar problems, I think. Many more people have similar issues. And Geshe Rabten speaks about this. Okay. And this may be useful for many of us, maybe all of us to some extent, come across some of these issues. And then we'll go into how to study the teachings. Okay, the way that Geshe Rabten teaches us. All right. So I hope this is useful for us, and you won't be upset that we're not going straight into the Shantideva, because somehow it's like, I don't know, it's like attacking the very, very tasty dessert before even having tasted the soup or the entree or whatever, aperitif. So we can't go straight to the delicious dessert, even though maybe Gujaratis do that because it's actually more healthy in terms of food. But in terms of Dharma practice, we need to have the preliminaries first. Okay, so what are the problems that can arise when we're studying or trying to meditate? One is a kind of nervousness that is there, a kind of a nervous buzz that is there in our nervous systems, because we are modern people, mainly urban, who think a lot. We live in busy environments, crowded environments. We are subject to much more noise and traffic and particle pollution than people were even 50 years ago, let alone a few hundred years ago. And so many causes and conditions are there to make there be a kind of a nervousness, a kind of a, we respond to the environment. We are oneness with our environment, yeah? We can't say we're totally separate. So we have nervousness in us. The environment has all these issues and noise and sound and vibration, and they are playing on each other. So there's a certain lack of mental ease, Geshe Rabten puts it, or at least the translator. Geshe Rabten, of course, taught in Tibetan. But there is a very learned and good translator, Martin Wilson, who has put this together. Okay, now, like any good teacher, especially in this Nalanda tradition, Geshe-la starts to talk about the causes. What is causing this? I've just mentioned one superficial cause, maybe. What are the deeper causes of this mental unease? He says, and this is important because it brings us immediately to the nitty-gritty of what we might call traditional, authentic Buddha Dharma. We're not beating around the bush. We're not trying to just make people feel at ease. Remember what we had discussed last year, quoting one teacher who said that introducing ourselves to the Dharma should actually cause our lives to be turned upside down. We should not expect comfort, you know, like a crying child going to the arms of his mummy. That's not what the Dharma is, I'm afraid. Or your little puppy dog who comes to you because it's afraid of a bigger dog nearby. No, that is not exactly what the Dharma is about. It's about challenging us and dredging up all the garbage that most of us will probably find somewhere or other contained within these 5 aggregates. And I'm not just, of course, talking about the mucus and phlegm of Delhi winter. There's very deep stuff that has to be dredged, okay? Anyway, so what is the first cause that he says for this lack of mental ease? He says, if in a previous life, one has caused great fear or harm, caused great fear in someone or harmed somebody, then one may experience mental disturbance in this life. Remember the teaching on karma? The kind of experiences we inflict on others, whether it be positive or negative, that comes back to us. The repercussion is experienced by us. So if we feel that lack of ease, this is something which we need to look deeply into the past. 2, again, this is challenging our Western materialistic or modern materialistic worldview that, you know, only what we can see with our eyes or with the superficial senses is valid or existing. The second, he says, is certain external interferences, such as various sorts of spirits, can disturb the mind. This is well recognized in Buddhism, whether Mahayana, Theravada, and it's well recognized, as we know, by traditional religions, the church, and, Christianity, Islam. They all accept that we can be taken over by forces that which are conscious and which may be positive, but often malevolent, and create a lot of disharmony within body and mind, and which needs special kind of people who know how to deal with them and exorcise those beings. One example of this, not to you know, I mean, some of you may have seen The Exorcist, that very violent that movie. But of course, the one other example of exorcism was His Holiness Dalai Lama being called to a Tibetan settlement in the early days of the Tibetans moving to India. So we're talking early 60s. There was a lot of disturbances in one particular place inhabited by the Tibetans, and they were convinced that the kind of things that were happening were not ordinary. They were not caused by any ordinary person, a human being or animal, but that it was a case of spirit harm. So they called His Holiness, obviously had more time in those days to go around to places and do practices for people. And yeah, he said, yes, there is some disturbance. So they expected His Holiness to do some kind of heavy ritual puja, with drums and bells and all of that, heavy tantric puja, which of course Tibetans do a lot. But he sat there and meditated for a while. And after he'd done that, the problem went away immediately. There was no more of the problems they were having at that community. And then they asked His Holiness, kind of, how come, what had he done? And he said, well, I just, tried to meditate on compassion, So obviously, His Holiness's meditation on compassion is pretty good, and probably joined with his understanding of shunyata, emptiness. And so after that, there were no problems. Anyway, for us who don't have those kind of mental powers yet, perhaps, or confidence, we are caught up with a lot of unease, which can be caused by spirits. I've met people, Westerners, whom I couldn't explain their problem any other way. It just seemed they were incredibly disturbed. And it's not like they were being disturbed a long time. The disturbance came and kind of went. And so this is, and it's well recognized in Tibetan medicine as well, that this can happen. And in those cases, often pujas are done in addition to medicine, like medicine Buddha practice and other practices can be done. Seems like the case that Dalai Lama had to look into was one which hadn't been alleviated by all these other methods. Obviously, some kind of, some deeper problem there, which His Holiness was able to deal with. Okay, then of course, the third is imbalance of the physical elements in our body. Yeah, that can induce mental imbalance. That can induce mental imbalance. यहाँ दे दीजिए थोड़ा, जिनको चाहिए, हमको नहीं चाहिए अभी. और आप पी लीजिए. Sorry, just a tea offering here, like in Tibetan pujas. The tea comes round, the sweet rice, and so forth. हाँ? नहीं. मैंने बोला आप लोगों के लिए कुछ बने तो बन जाए. No. कोई नहीं. So imbalance of the four physical elements, okay? That can happen through wrong diet, wrong sleep, wrong thinking, all these factors, wrong lifestyle in general, as we know now. There are plenty of life, what do they call? Life, क्या बोलते हैं उनको? The people now who teach you how to lead your life. Life guide? Life coach. Life coaches are telling us this, and it's absolutely right. I mean, this is nothing new, If we disturb ourselves through thinking too much, sleeping too much or too little, eating the wrong kind of food, behaving like Shantideva and so forth when we're not ready for it, then, we'll have imbalances. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And all disease comes from some kind of physical imbalance. That's a basic factor of Chinese, Tibetan, Indian medicine. Imbalance in the elements leads to imbalance in the organs and so forth. That leads to disease, dis-ease, imbalance, unease, right? Then the fourth factor, so we've had a previous life factor, we've had a spirit factor, we've had imbalance of the four physical elements. Then the fourth is if we've had a great suffering of some kind, a trauma or great suffering of some kind, that can, as we know, make the mind deeply disturbed. People who who lose their dear ones in some accident or violence or something. It can be so deeply traumatic and lead to such great suffering that totally disturbs the system. And if they're not treated properly or with, the proper way and compassionately or whatever, then it can last for the rest of their lives. So very great suffering can make the mind deeply disturbed. Then the fifth is that when one is working very hard at study or meditation, then soklung, or this is the life-bearing wind according to the inner system of looking at the body, the life-bearing wind, an imbalance in that can arise with no apparent reason. This is the worst kind of wind imbalance, inner energy imbalance. Let's just see what the text does say about soklung. Okay. Okay, there's nothing major said there, but he mentions it later. Okay, so these five, all right. So I'm sure we have many factors in our lives contributing to mental imbalance, right? Some Tibetans, he says, just used to play without being made to do any sort of work until they were 20 or more. They were quite relaxed. Goodness. But in the West, children start to experience the pressures of education as young as 2.5 or 3. Or even earlier, they do not know certain things. Their parents are anxious they should know them. Their teachers are trying to get them to learn them. So these pressures can create very early in life the seed of the great nervousness called soklung. This disorder involves a gradual mixing of a malignant wind, inner energy wind, with the subtle life wind entering the heart chakra, the wheel of energy in the center of the chest, the subtle wheel of energy in the center of the chest, not the heart, not the physical heart that we know. So when that happens, this increasingly disturbs the mind, obstructs whatever that person is trying to do. Doctors can't detect this problem with instruments and tests, but most of the patients in the mental hospitals of the West are suffering from this disturbance of the life wind. Now, this is according to a very great practitioner, a great tantric practitioner. Yeah? Geshe Rabten was not an ordinary practitioner. So I think he knows what he's talking about. This is what I'm saying. He's not repeating something he's heard. He's someone who had the deepest levels of realization. So I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. And of course, he dealt with a lot of, imbalanced students. The emanations from their state of harmony, these people in the mental hospital, can cause even the doctors caring for them to become similarly afflicted. Just as if we're living with someone who's very disturbed, right? We can become disturbed. Actually, we can become disturbed within a few minutes of being in the presence of someone who is deeply disturbed. Don't you think? Have you ever had that experience? You can become very uneasy, very nervous, without that person saying anything. It can happen, right? So since doctors can't help us if we get this soklung disorder, and if in general any sort of lung or wind imbalance is difficult to cure, we should try to practice the teachings in such a way as to avoid its arising. A sign of the beginning of this imbalance is the mind becomes disturbed very easily. Great fear can arise for no apparent external cause. For example, if one's meditating on compassion, thinking about the suffering of others, one becomes very upset, starts to cry. if air tends to well up in the lungs so that one spontaneously takes deep breaths and exhales deeply, the lung is getting stronger. One should try to relax. Easier said than done, right? If one is tired, it's good to sleep. Now, that is something that would have been understood 100 years ago. Now we don't understand that. We don't understand. You see what I'm saying? We can be very tired, but we find plenty to do. And then, we just keep on going. And then we get sick. Or we get this kind of imbalance and we become very jittery and spacey and distracted. If the sternum, that's the breastbone, right? This is the sternum, right? Where's the sternum? Oh, this one. So this is the sternum. Is that right? So the front between the ribs. Okay. If the sternum starts moving backwards and forwards, this is a sign that the lung, when the balance, is quite heavy. Mind becomes very weak. One becomes unable to speak even with any strength. One's bodily movements also weak and unstable. In general, an unhappy state of mind makes the arising of lung likely. So when meditating on the stage of the path, we should attempt to keep the mind quiet and happy with what we're doing. And then there's little probability of this arising and every chance of success. So it's important to start off with the right attitude. So as Trungpa said, isn't it, in one of the teachings we've heard many times before, everything is like every problem almost we have, you could say it comes from being uptight. Uptight. What's that? We're not relaxed. We're not relaxed. It's like we're on our guard all the time. We hear something, someone's saying something, we immediately can sometimes interpret it in the wrong way because we're just on guard all the time. We're kind of, it's like we have a rifle in our hand and we're in a trench and the enemy's out there, kind of like that. So it's important to start off with the right attitude, as a mistake at the beginning can carry all the way through, just like an error at the start of adding up a column of figures. So these four types of will imbalance should be dealt with in their four respective ways. So disturbance due to the karma of causing fear and harm to others in past lives, that is to be dissolved by purification of one's bad karma. So the purification, engaging in practices of benefiting others, etc., etc. Disturbances by spirits, countered by appeasing the spirits with special offering ceremonies, pujas, or of course, if one is good, then compassion. The spirits also want to be happy, you see, and they are just very disturbed beings who get their kicks out of, harming others. They just can't help it, So compassion and so forth. Of course, all pujas should be performed with the right motivation, right? We're not supposed to engage in a puja with hatred or anger. Although it may look a very powerful puja with a clashing of many cymbals and bells and so forth, drums, it's not to be performed with anger, obviously. Third, if it's a physical disease, an imbalance of the four elements, then one should consult a doctor, take the necessary medicines. Of course, we should consult the right sort of doctor, not just someone who's going to dose us up with very powerful chemical medicine, which is what often happens in the name of psychiatric care nowadays, which is not very helpful at all from this perspective. That's not going to, it may temporarily put us to sleep or make us very dopey or something like that, but it's not going to solve the underlying problem of imbalance. when mental disharmony is being caused by intense suffering, then one has to overcome the power of the mental suffering through the power of dharma, through the power of practice. And if one can't do this, then at least one should identify the causes about which one has been thinking too much and distract the mind away from them by engaging in something else. Playing can be helpful. There are many kinds of play. Whenever I see a round ball, I like to play with it. This is in one way juvenile, but another way I think quite healthy. I like kicking a football around or a tennis ball. One should have that attitude of not being too uptight and wanting to always be very serious and as though one were, I don't know, the king or queen or something. Yeah. So, of course, there are also more direct methods by meditating on the subtle wind itself, but that's quite difficult. One should relax, try to make the mind more easy and open. And of course, one way that we keep our mind tight, isn't it, don't you think, is by having many opinions and ideas and sticking to them. That really makes the mind quite tight, because then we begin to identify with our ideas, our thoughts, our opinions, which we think are so good, so correct, so, and how reasonable compared to other people's wrong opinions or ideas or ideologies and blah, 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 So all it takes is for the person to have another opinion, another caste, another color, another country, whatever, and then there's a problem arises in our mind. We become uptight, we cling, we fixate to what we believe in, what we've identified with. So just trying to make the mind more easy, more open, but it's no use just doing nothing. One should try to identify the problem and see how to overcome it. Even if we don't get this lung, this wind balance ourselves, knowing about it may enable us to talk helpfully to others who do get it. Now, how to study the teaching? We'll just do a little of this and then we'll look at Shantideva. But I think, is this useful? Yeah. Onliners, is this useful? All asleep. Onliners.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, thank you. Yes.
Yes, Kabir.
Yes, good. Thank you. Oof. Like speaking to a brick wall. Looks like bricks, actually. Rectangles. Sorry, you're not bricks. You can't hear very well. Oh dear. It could be a connection. Can anyone else not hear very well? I think the sound's okay.
Sounds
Nidhi,
okay.
is the sound okay?
It sounds okay. For me, it's
Sounds okay.
Fine over here.
Okay. आपका तो ठीक है. Loud and clear, says Ashish. Thank you. Okay. ठीक है. Right. Okay. So now this is something useful, and I get embarrassed when I have to relay these teachings because they apply so much to myself. How to study the teachings. Benefits of listening to the Dharma teaching. Okay. Regardless of the qualities of the teachings, and they may be incredible teachings, they're no use unless they're applied by the practitioner to their own life, to their own mind, right? So first of all, to know what to do, one has to listen to teachings. And since this is going to affect everything that comes later, we need to know the correct way from the beginning, how to listen. What's the correct method of listening to these teachings? It's not just something ordinary we're engaging in. It's kind of extraordinary. So how do we go about it? two faults, Geshe-la then says, well, the teachings in general are saying two faults can arise, which create big problems. First is the attitude we have of collecting teachings, collecting, like we might collect stamps, or in the old days, people collected stamps and, whatever we collect. Just listening in order to acquire information, more pieces of knowledge, much as one reads a newspaper, without any proper intention of applying it in one's own life. So having heard the teaching, then one has this attitude, I've heard that. I've heard that. I want something new, I've heard that before. It's like saying, oh, I brushed my teeth before, why should I brush them again? We don't think like that. We know we have to brush our teeth every day. But here we just say, oh, I've heard that. We want some other teaching, higher teaching. We want something new and interesting. In fact, one should listen to teachings again and again, not forgetting them, but bearing them in mind, trying to remain aware of every point. Then, if one hears the same teaching repeated later, there's much benefit to be gained, since one's way of looking at things may have changed a little bit in the meanwhile. But the collector type of student, gains no immediate advantage from hearing a teaching again, merely a certain imprint on the mind, which of course is also useful, but it's really not that useful. Because, I don't know, it seems that probably one is collecting because of a sense of an inner psychological need or lack of the wrong, we all have the need to practice the Dharma, let's say, could be healthy or it could be a little unhealthy. If we are just collecting teachings because we feel very, very, unsure about ourselves and actually just want to distract our mind away from the deeper problems in our life, then we may just become a collector of teachings, seeing it as a substitute for the real thing, kind of distracting ourselves, much as we might with any other, thing. Okay, so one is the collector. The second fault, so although one does intend to listen carefully to the teachings, not understanding the benefits of doing so. We're not aware of the benefits. It's like being told to take a certain medicine or do something by one's parents or a doctor, but they don't tell you why they're asking you to do that, what the benefits are. They're not encouraging us by telling us of the benefits. We might be told not to lie, not to steal, many things. But if we're not clearly told the benefits, then it's quite different from just being told, don't do it. Okay, so he's saying only with this understanding will one have the enthusiasm to overcome any difficulties that arise in listening and practicing. For example, a man doing unpleasant work in a factory is kept going only by the thought of the money he's earning. So he knows there's some money to be earned, so that keeps him going. Otherwise he'd stop all of that. He just wouldn't want to work at all if it was a particular kind of job. Therefore, it's important to understand the benefits of listening to the teaching. To explain them would take a long time, to explain them exactly as is done in the stages of the path teachings, but Geshe-la here mentions a few points briefly. As any light overcomes darkness, so the function of listening is to gain the knowledge and wisdom that overcomes the darkness of the mind. Hearing a teaching on any subject may produce some understanding, which grows when one goes away and thinks about it, so that an area of one's ignorance is dispelled. Some part of the ignorance we have is dispelled. 2, all external possessions we may have may be lost. They can be stolen, destroyed, and so forth. But once we have a real understanding of a point of the teachings, of a Dharma realization, then that no one can take that away. If it's been understood properly, integrated with our minds, then nobody can steal that from us. 3, proper understanding of Dharma of the teachings, which after all is the way things are, okay, dharma, the way things are, the law in a sense of how things are, and how to behave and so forth, that is our best possible friend. There is no friend greater than that. Unlike ordinary friends, this dharma never deserts us, whatever the situation. It's always available to help us find the best solution to any problem. Authentic dharma has that quality. Where can we find a friend like that? Really, an external friend. Where can you find a friend like that? However deeply committed, infatuated, or connected one may feel with a person, and one can, of course, feel very connected to people, how much can that person benefit us and we benefit them long term? Very difficult, don't you think? From your experience. Very difficult. Not that people can't help each other tremendously, of course, but not as much as the dharma, well-integrated dharma. Then, because if we can do that, then nothing will destroy our confidence or our quiet inner joy. And after all, no friend can bestow enlightenment on us. Only our own practice of the dharma can bring us to that state of awakening. No friend can do that. Even the guru can't do that. I mean, the external guru. Only the inner guru that we've integrated through our practice can lead us, in a sense, to enlightenment. And this is just words I'm using. In one sense, enlightenment doesn't have a cause. But we create the right conditions, and then it comes about. So in one way, it seems to be caused. In another way, it's something beyond ordinary cause. If we go into retreat to meditate, and often we are advised to do this by our teachers, or decide on our own, I'm going to go and meditate on the teachings. Then what are we going to go and meditate on? Unless we've listened to the Dharma properly, there'll be no possibility of the wisdom that arises from hearing, thinking, and meditating arising. If we just don't know what we're doing, we just decide it would be nice, we've read a little bit, but we don't really know how to integrate it. We haven't had instructions. We don't know how to deal with our mind during retreat. We don't know how to arouse the right kind of, motivation and so forth. Then we are kind of wasting our time. We could be wasting our time. And simply collecting retreats. I don't know, some people proudly tell me they've done 10 or more Vipassana retreats, but I'm wondering for how many people has it really transformed their mind? Maybe some, of course, I'm sure. But how much is it just a habit we get into and we're not really integrating the deeper teachings? Maybe we go into retreat because we want to get away from a particularly bothersome situation at home or at work. So it's like a holiday in that sense. But as Lama Zopa Rinpoche, my teacher, says, a retreat should be a holiday away from two things mainly, the self-grasping ignorance, this whole clinging onto ourselves, this uptightness, and it should be a holiday away from the self-cherishing attitude, the mind that is constantly thinking of oneself and what's good for me, not considering others. So it should be a retreat from those things. And of course, a retreat away, a holiday away from unreasonable attraction to samsara, thinking that cyclic existence is something wonderful, full of delights to be enjoyed. If we have that kind of attitude, then if we go into retreat with that, then the retreat will be something which we probably use as a credential to tell people, oh, I did this retreat, that retreat. And we subtly feel quite, we feel good about that in terms of the fact that we are raising other people's esteem of us. So then that's the wrong motivation, right? So anyway, unless we've listened to the Dharma properly, There'll be no possibility of the authentic wisdom that arises from hearing, the wisdom that arises from thinking and contemplating, and the thinking that arises, and the wisdom that arises from meditation. Yeah, those three we keep on mentioning. Study, listening, reflecting, analyzing, thinking, and then deep meditation. Yeah. So then, if we really wish to help other people, talking to them can be of some use, provided we have experience of the relevant points developed from the understanding derived from listening to Dharma. But if we are merely repeating words we've heard without experience, then even though they are the same words of a person who has had the experience, it'll be of no direct benefit at all. This is pretty bad news. So he's saying if you're just repeating or teaching without having got the realization, you're not really helping others much. So basically, like Atisha said, the great Atisha said that now is not the time to be teaching others. He's saying this in general to people. He's saying now is not the time to be teaching other people. Now is the time to go into the forest and meditate. Now, in other words, now is the time to go into the retreat and fix your own mind, before you start telling other people what to do with their mind. In that sense, I feel बेरोजगार. मैं तो बेरोजगार हूँ. मैं तो जाके किसी वन में जाके चुपना होगा. Yeah, so we have to be careful. That's why people like Krishnamurti used to say, oh, we're investigating this topic together. Like we're investigating it together. No question of me here knowing more than you or being qualified to tell you what to think or do, but we're investigating something together. No authority. Of course, it's difficult to maintain that attitude when teachers are sitting on thrones, high thrones. But yeah, again, it depends on our attitude. High throne, low throne, no throne. What's the difference in one way? It's all simply a kind of a show. The main thing is what is being said. And remember, of course, to rely not on the teacher, but the teachings, not on the words, but the meaning. Yeah, we remember that. Not on the superficial meaning, but the deeper meaning. And not to rely with an ordinary distracted state of mind, but to rely with a wisdom awareness. So if we keep that in mind also, we won't go wrong so often, possibly. And then we realize that most of the time we are listening to the teachings with a distracted, ordinary awareness. And realize that, yeah, there is some benefit, but we need to work towards one day pacifying the mind so that it, deeper wisdom awareness arises based on shamatha and vipassana. Because right now, our listening, reflecting, meditating do not seem to have the power to crush the disturbing emotions, do they? Not sufficiently. So to some extent, yeah. Definitely, if I hadn't encountered Buddhism, I would be a wreck by now. I would be an arrogant wreck, or not a wreck, an arrogant person, or possibly contemplating or already having committed suicide, I would imagine, if I hadn't met Buddhism. So there is some benefit. But it's like they say, oneself is the best witness. Witness of what? One's own mind. If one is honest, oneself is the best witness. Don't go by what other people say about you. Go by what your own experiences is of yourself. Of course, there are difficulties there. One may be very, very self-critical sometimes and put oneself down too much. But, especially when people praise you, praise us, we should remember this, that, oneself is the best witness. I know who I am and who I'm not, Other people may say what they want. Of course, when they criticize you, again, you can say, okay, they're criticizing, but I know who I am, who I'm not, Their criticism may be totally unjust or exaggerated. Anyway, the point is, he's saying one has to put effort into listening, reflecting, meditating. Otherwise, it's not benefiting other people. You're cheating other people. And then, of course, they have in the teachings, don't they, this example of the three containers. The vessel, like a katora or something, katori. Listen well. In the best way, hold it in your mind. Listen well means just as an upside down vessel will not receive whatever's poured into it, so it's useless to sit in front of a teacher if one isn't listening properly. Therefore, instead of letting one's mind wander all over the place, one must be like a vessel that is the right way up, listening intently to receive the teaching. Listening in the best way means a vessel, a kotori, may be dirty with old food or refuse in it, and even poison. So whatever you put into it will become contaminated and unsafe. So therefore, if one listens hard to the teaching, it'll be of no use if one has the wrong attitude of trying always to find faults with the other students or with the teachers or with the teachings. It's one thing to have doubts, but if you're just trying to find faults all the time and having a wrong attitude, then the teaching will be contaminated by one's unwholesome frame of mind. So like a vessel that is not only the right way up, but also clean inside, one must listen with pure motivation, feeling I'm a Dharma practitioner, listening to these teachings in order to help my practice. And as you know, thinking of oneself as a sick person, and the teachings as the medicine, and the instructor as the doctor. Yeah. Hold it in your mind means that the vessel may be upright, it also may be clean, but it's no use if it has holes in the bottom. If it leaks, it's of no use. So the teachings go in one ear, out the other. And then we don't benefit. So it's important to hold them in one's mind, going over the points again and again until they are firmly integrated with the mind. In this way, a very strong impression is left on the mind. Traditional way of giving and receiving teachings in the past, apparently this is how Marpa taught Milarepa, according to Geshe Rabten. You give a teaching to the student, they meditate on it and so forth, come back to the teacher, report their experiences, whatever. Only when the teacher is satisfied that the student has mastered that particular meditation, or do they get the next teaching. So you wouldn't get the whole of these teachings all at once. You would first get, say, precious human life or death and impermanence. Then when the student has mastered that, they're given the next teaching. Then they go off and meditate on that. That's the best way, obviously, if one has time, isn't it? And a teacher whom you can be close to and get advice from. But sadly, this is not the case nowadays. So we have to just be very careful to monitor our own practice if we have that kind of time. So for example, I've just been, to make it personal can be useful, I've just been given advice by my teacher in Bodh Gaya to try and do 2 hours of this stages of the path meditation every day. So yeah, you'll be seeing me yawning more and more now in the evening teachings, since I'll be getting up earlier and doing more meditation on these basic teachings, because that's what's needed, right? So, and this is on top of other meditation I'm supposed to do, but the basic lamrim, and also to do retreat. I've been told to go into retreat, which is very good news because I haven't done it for a very, very, very unhealthy length of time. So practice. One has to practice this, sincerely, with the right motivation. Otherwise, it's useless. Yes. Okay. Question time already. Yes. Could you speak up, please?
After listening to the teachings, to reflect on them.
Yes.
Before meditating.
Yes. between reflection and meditation. Reflection means, say you've received a teaching on death and impermanence. Okay, death is definite, time of death indefinite, only dharma helps at the time of death, and all of the different points within those 3 subsections. Okay, you hear that teaching, but hearing it is one thing, or reading it is one thing. You have to go over point by point and begin to analyze those different subsets. So then within one of them, you have this teaching that, everyone who has been born up to now, whoever they were, whether a king or a beggar, dies. Okay, then you think, well, that's obvious. Even a 5-year-old would know that. But when you actually start to think about it, thinking, okay, let's think of someone. Okay, this king, this person, that person, this, historical figure, the people I know, every single person you think about, lived and then died. And then everyone you know today is living, maybe now, but they're going to die. And to really just keep on thinking like that. Because you see, what we think about then colors our mind. Like immersing a cloth in dye, it's just going to take that color, right? If we just think of something once or twice, it's not going to have much effect. But if we keep on going over and over, okay, this person I know, they're going to die. That person in history, oh, they died. They were very famous. They were so powerful. They did blah, 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 but now they're dead, So that happens to everyone, and it's going to happen to me, Then the teaching there that, okay, I'm going to 8 hours of my life or whatever of average people is spent in sleeping, and then other, so many hours in working, cooking, doing all sorts of things, watching TV and Netflix and so forth. So then how much time is left for authentic practice? To think about that point again and again. So this is reflecting. Then through reflection, a certain feeling arises in the mind, a certain conclusion may kind of arise in the mind. And then one focuses single-pointedly on that feeling that arises, or the conclusion one comes to. One single-pointedly thinks about that. If it's a meditation on compassion, then by thinking of the sufferings of others again and again, that is the reflection part, the analytical, it's a kind of analytical meditation as well. And then one places the mind on the feeling that arises when one is thinking again and again. But before that stage that I've just mentioned, when you are analytically going through how beings suffer, one can discuss it, one can go over it in one's mind. So then how does an animal suffer? How does an animal suffer? Because when we look at cuddly cats, and puppies and all, they are so cute, blah, blah, blah. Now, how do animals actually suffer? How do they feel? What are the teachings saying about them? Or one could look at these, animal documentaries on TV. And I watched one once very carefully, and it was horrific in one way, because it showed how this tiny insect walked all the way up a tree, this tiny insect in a jungle walked all the way up to the tree to find its mate, okay? And then it got killed by another insect and just dropped to the bottom of the floor of the jungle. It was just the way the camera work is so amazing in these documentaries. You see this insect, tiny insect going, and then it dies. Doesn't get what it wants, it dies. And then you have insects, of course, on film being eaten alive and swallowed by, bigger animals. And that's kind of not nice. But even a stray dog you see, or, the dog you see lying in the sun and you feel jealous, oh, I wish I could just lie in the sun like that dog. But what's it like to be a dog? To think again and again about it, to reflect on it, and then to focus on that feeling, on that sense of what you got from reflecting. So then that's stabilizing meditation. That's the real meditation, because that makes it, it's like having prepared the dough, rolled out the chapati, and then when you put it on the tawa or in the tandoor, that's when it really becomes what it has to be, what is then nourishing, what is then going to be food for the mind, for the body. So is it getting a bit clearer? We have to listen, but then you have to think about it a bit before you can stabilize your mind on the real essence of it, the meaning of it. Because when we've meditated sufficiently, it is said, then a realization arises, which means a very, very deep gut level understanding of what is being said, at a deeper than an intellectual level, you see. The first two stages are more intellectual, and the third is something deeper. One doesn't have to call it anti-intellectual, but it's not just conceptual, maybe. It goes beyond, or it's a more subtle conceptual understanding. Of course, until we realize emptiness, everything will be pretty much, quite a bit of it will be more conceptual, I think. But, you know, to think about death in the way that's taught in the stages of the path teachings can be very powerful. You know, when I did it properly in the past, then I became afraid of, there was anxiety came up about traveling, because then I felt it's so easy to die. I might die on the way back. I was in Nepal then. I'll die on the way back to India, you know? Because Lama Zopa Rinpoche had been hammering it into us for weeks. Death and impermanence, suffering. So that's when the mind can begin to transform a little bit. And if one does it regularly, like now I'm supposed to be doing it, or at least in retreat 2 hours a day, it should have some effect on the mind, right? Yeah, so I don't know if that, I hope that begins to answer your query. So how much time do we have left for Shantideva? Well, we have some time. So did I finish that section? So Geshe Rabden's book, The Essential Nectar, it's really amazing book. Commentary on the Lamrim of Yeshe Sondru. So, and then what do we require as students? We've spoken about this before, but how does Geshe Rabden put it? He says, not only must the teacher of the Dharma be unwaveringly truthful, the disciple must also be honest enough to recognize their own faults so they can use the teachings to eliminate them and develop good qualities. Otherwise, when shown by the teacher how to overcome some fault, one might simply react uselessly with anger or annoyance. Yeah? So often looking into people's faces as I teach, he said, I can see just this kind of anger arising. In addition, a student needs intelligence and a genuine longing to receive the Dharma. One teacher, Chökyi Nyingma Rinpoche, who's based in Kathmandu, has a very good teaching program there. He says our wish to receive the teachings and to understand the nature of the minds should be like the intense longing of a young child who has gone to a fair, a mela, with their mother and has got lost. And the intense longing and wish of that child to be reunited with the mother. Can one imagine? Maybe it happened to us in childhood. We got lost sometime, completely lost. And there was panic and fear, intense, you know, one wanted to be reunited with our parents. We're lost, you know, we're young, we're helpless. So it's that kind of feeling. One should have this intense longing for the Dharma. That's the only thing that is going to really matter. That's the only thing that matters. And of course, within Dharma, the understanding of the nature of one's mind. I thought that was a very good example. And the way Chökyi Nyingma Rinpoche taught it was very moving. You know, one should have this tremendous longing for the Dharma. And, yeah. So there should be that, but also intelligence, as he says. That's the second point. And the first point, of course, is that one should be open-minded enough to listen when one's own sort of faults are being spoken about, which one doesn't want to hear, you know. Yeah. Then follows one of the Tibetan stories that the traditional lamas love to teach, and which, you know, we would want to take with large doses of salt. You want to hear the story? You want to hear? Huh? Yes. You want a story? This is in place of Ramayana and Mahabharata on TV. One needs a good story. So this is a story of a previous life of the Buddha from the Jatakamala of Arya Sura. And by the way, before I forget, any of you can find in a bookshop or you see online the Lalita Vistar or the life of the Buddha. I saw it. There's beautiful panels, 108 panels, beautifully arranged on the western side of the Muchalinda pond next to the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya. Tarthan Tulku, his great Dharma work, he's put up this. These people have put up the panels with all of the Lalita Vistar in English, and there you see. This is not the Jatakamala, but anyway, the life of the Buddha. So amazing, so moving, so powerful to read that Lalita Vistara, or the life of the Buddha. Anyway, this is from the Jatakamala, which also can be very moving, and which I remember His Holiness Dalai Lama used to teach every year at Tibetan New Year in Dharamsala. And one year, speaking about the sacrifice of the Buddha in a previous life, His Holiness, started weeping. He was so moved by the actions of that of the Bodhisattva, Shakyamuni. In previous lives, obviously, was a great Bodhisattva at some point, and then later became fully awakened. Anyway, okay, this is a story of a previous life of the Buddha. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. Once the Bodhisattva was born as a prince called Sutta Soma. I don't know what that means in Sanskrit, but it probably has a meaning. Sutta-Soma. Sutta Soma. Sometimes the Tibetans get it wrong, the way they say the Sanskrit words, but anyway, Sutta Soma. Now, it happened that a certain king, Sudasa, lost in the forest, had coupled with a lioness, who subsequently gave birth to a human child. A bit strange, but anyway, this is a story. Maybe it has a deeper meaning. This boy, though brought up by his father, inherited from his mother a taste for human flesh, right? The mother was a lioness. Also, in exchange for their protection, he had promised to a group of Pisacha demons, similarly inclined, a sacrifice of 100 royal princes. So now he prowled the land in search of princes to eat or sacrifice. Good grief. So one day, this dreadful cannibal came to Sutta Soma's palace. As his army and attendants scattered in terror, Sutta Soma calmly called out, "Hello, here I am. Take me by all means. Do not bother those poor people." So the son of Sudasa carried him back to his lair to cook and eat him. So he inherited his mother's wish for flesh, but his father's wish to cook it and eat it. Kacha nahi khayenge, paka ke khayenge, hai na? So then, astonished at the Bodhisattva's demeanor, his fearlessness in the face of death, thanks to his complete lack of self-cherishing, the son of Sudasa accepted his request to return home for last farewells, after which the Bodhisattva promised to return. So Sutta Soma went home, explained the situation to his father, and in fulfillment of his promise came back to the cannibal's lair, saying, "Now I'm back. You can eat me if you wish." The son of Siddhartha, amazed to see him return, just to keep his word, questioned him. The Bodhisattva explained the virtues of truthfulness and how he had no reason to fear death, since all his life he had practiced generosity and avoided evil actions. Greatly moved, the son of Siddhartha begged the Bodhisattva to teach him the Dharma in these words: "Seeing the form of my evil conduct in your righteousness's clear mirror, great longing is born within my mind, and I turn towards the Dharma." Thus, the Bodhisattva saw that the son of Siddhartha was open-minded enough to admit his own faults and had the necessary desire for teachings. But still he would not teach the Dharma straight away, but insisted on certain preparations. Sitting on a lower seat, in token of your humbled pride, gaze with joyful eyes, as if drinking the nectar of the words. Devoutly and one-pointedly incline your mind, serene and pure, and listen in reverence to the Dharma, as a sick man to his doctor's words. So the son of Siddhartha made a pile of wood to serve as a throne, covered it with his upper garment, as he had nothing else for a cushion. Then, seated on the throne with the son of Siddhartha at his feet, Sutta taught the Dharma and persuaded the cannibal to abandon killing and harming sentient beings and the eating of human flesh, and also to release the other royal princes that he was holding captive for sacrifice. So the manner of teaching, those listen, just as those who listen should consider benefits, so the teacher in turn should reflect on the benefits of teaching the Dharma so that he or she can teach tirelessly. And there's a sutra quoted in the Stages of the Path teachings that lists 20 benefits. We won't go through them all right now. Explaining the Dharma involves actions of body, speech, and mind, all of which brings benefits. Yeah, so the intention with which one shares or teaches is very important. If one just is wishing for people to admire one's virtue or learning or give money, but one shouldn't do that, but with the thought of great compassion, wishing that all beings may be free from suffering. Never thinking that teaching the Dharma is hard work, the teacher smiles and delights in it untiringly, but takes care to teach only what is useful in leading towards enlightenment. After the teaching, if one meditates only on something else, then little is gained. One should meditate on the new teachings one receives and combine them with one's existing meditational practices. To get to wherever one wants to go, one must keep to the path without being diverted. This applies to the path of Dharma practice just as to ordinary paths. So that took a while, but I think worthwhile. This is a really excellent book. It's a little expensive, but then, you know, the essence of Buddha Dharma is here, of the Sutra path is in these texts, you see. From the beginning, death, and impermanence, and so forth, Guru devotion, precious human life, all the way up to Bodhichitta and emptiness. It's all there in the Stages of the Path teachings. So we can do a little few verses of Shantideva briefly and then have some discussion, just so that we have some continuity of the Shantideva. So we're on the meditation chapter, where he is really giving us no quarter, lacerating us with teachings on the shortcomings of desire, ordinary desire. I can't remember exactly which verse we had ended on. I was in Goa when we were going through this a few weeks ago. Since the body has a naturally foul odor, verse 66 in the meditation chapter, since the body has a naturally foul odor, isn't it good to be unattached to it? Why do those who crave for the meaningless things of the world anoint this body with pleasant scents? 66. Maybe a slightly different wording in your... Well, the worldly answer to that question is, why anoint it with pleasant scents? Because it has a naturally bad odor. What do you say to that? What would Shantideva say to that? अभी तो आपने बोला कि इसका सुगंध ठीक नहीं है, तो इसलिए हम लोग वो लगाते हैं. What's perfume in Hindi? अतर. इसलिए अतर लगाते हैं. What he's saying is that naturally the body is not something wonderful. We all have to add things to it to make it bearable, you know. In the old days, I used to, formerly I used to travel on the top of a bus from Bodh Gaya to Gaya because being inside the bus was too smelly. There's the days before. Anyway, this is rural India, and there weren't all these, what are they, metrosexuals or whatever? Metro, what's the word? What's the word they use now for people who are living in, anyway, people living in urban areas who are well versed with deodorants and so forth. So people would be, hanging on in the bus, and, the stench of sweat and so forth and 100 armpits was just too much. So I would always travel on the top of the bus. And that had its own dangers, like low-lying electricity wires and others. But anyway, so the point is, unless we use sprays and this and that, the body has an odor that most of us wouldn't like very much, if it was just unadorned, usually. And furthermore, if it is the pleasant scent of sandalwood, how can it come from the body? So why am I attached to others' bodies? Because of scents that are other than theirs. He's saying, yeah, it's other powered. It's not own powered. It's powered by other things. To make the body desirable, we need to adorn it with other things. Since the naked body left in its natural state is very frightening due to its long hair and nails, its yellowish, foul-smelling teeth, and it's being coated with the odor of dirt, why do I make such an effort to polish it? Like cleaning a weapon that will cause me harm. Hence, this entire world is disturbed with insanity due to the exertions of those who are confused about themselves. That is an amazing 2 sentences, which can, in a sense, describe how the teachings talk about ordinary people in general. Hence, this entire world is disturbed with insanity due to the exertions of those who are confused about themselves. What's the translation in the other text, please? In the Padmakara, how does it translate that? Last 2 lines of verse 69. You have it, Ajivji?
No.
Sagar?
The cares that people squander on themselves in ignorance convulse the universe with madness.
Convulse the?
Universe with madness.
Convulse the universe with madness, yeah. I like this though. Those who are confused about themselves. मतलब हम लोग सपना में माया में घूम रहे हैं बेचारे तो पागल हैं सब. Really, which is a good teaching also when other people behave strangely. We need not be surprised. Since we're living in a pagal khana, no one's going to behave very normally, whether they're a politician or your best friend. Don't expect them to behave serenely and logically and all the rest of it. Why should they? Pagal khana. When my mind rises above worldly concerns, through having beheld nothing but skeletons in the cemetery, will there be any joy in graveyard cities? which are filled with moving skeletons. How about it? How about it? Will there be any joy in graveyard cities which are filled with moving skeletons? Most of them, many of them sitting in cars, but they're still moving skeletons. Sitting in cars, clogging the arteries of the city. It's like bad cholesterol all over the place, except on an urban level. Furthermore, these unclean bodies are not found without paying a price. In order to obtain them, I exhaust myself and in future will be injured in the hells. Remember, he's talking to monks. In this text, it says there furthermore, these unclean female bodies, but all bodies are unclean. Male, female, in between, all of them are not found without paying a price. Okay. As a child, I'm unable to increase my wealth. And as a youth, what can I do? Being unable to afford a wife. At the end of my life, when I have the wealth, being an old man, what good will sex be then? Some malicious and lustful people wear themselves out by working all day, and when they return home in the evening, their exhausted bodies lie prostrate like corpses. Yeah, you know. Some have the suffering of being disturbed with travel, having to go a long way from home. Although they long for their spouses, they don't see them for years at a time. Yeah, very much the case in India. Poor countries, you know. The men folk usually go a long way away to work to other countries. They don't see their families, don't see their wives, partners for years on end sometimes. And some who wish for benefit, due to confusion, even sell themselves for the sake of women and the like. But not attaining what they wish, they are aimlessly driven by the winds of others' actions. I'm wondering how Pema Chodron comments on that. Chapter 8, verse 60. Well, at the end of these verses, we have an idea, a dream of what would bring us comfort and pleasure, somehow missing the point that what we go through to achieve that dream is painful and absurd. The goal of happiness eludes us despite all our worries and toil. Some sell their own bodies and without any power are employed by others. Even when their wives give birth, their children fall at the feet of trees and in lonely places. Yeah, I mean, when you see people on construction sites in cities, right, in Delhi, wherever, kids just roaming around, you know, working in winter and in summer, working hard, and just, or, you know, poor parents with their children. One wonders what kind of life they have. Some fools who are deceived by desire and wishing for a livelihood think, I shall earn my living as a soldier. Then, although afraid of losing their lives, they go to war. Others become slaves for the sake of profit. Some lustful people even cut their bodies. Others impale themselves on the points of sticks. Some stab themselves with daggers, and others burn themselves. Such things as these are quite apparent. Due to the torment involved in collecting it, protecting, and finally losing it, I should realize wealth to be fraught with infinite problems. Those who are distracted by their attachment to it have no opportunity to gain freedom from the misery of conditioned existence. Talking about wealth now, not so much about the opposite sex, but wealth. In the same way as animals drawing carriages are only able to eat a few mouthfuls of grass, Likewise, desirous people have many disadvantages such as these and little profit. Since even animals can obtain this little profit, those who are pained by their previous actions waste these leisures and endowments, referring to the precious human life, so difficult to find, for the sake of something trivial that is not so scarce. The objects of desire, whatever they are, will certainly perish, and I shall fall into hellish states. However, this is important, however, Buddhahood itself is attained with just 1/1,000,000th of the difficulty. You're getting it now, life after life, driven by confusion, desire, anger, all the rest of it. We're just going round and round and round and not getting what we want and spending so much energy. Think of all the effort we just made in this life for whatever we want. He's saying with a fraction of that effort, we can become a Buddha if we give up all this confusion and excessive desire and hatred and all the rest of it. Well, desire here, especially for other people's bodies and for wealth and possessions. Involved in continually exhausting myself for the sake of what is not very great, hence the desirous experience greater misery than those following the awakening way of life. But for them, there is no awakening. So we think, oh, it must be so hard to be a meditator, go in the forest, have simple food, not be surrounded by comforts, not get presents at Christmas and Diwali, be cut off from one's family. But according to Shantideva, there's much less suffering involved in that than in ordinary life. When one has contemplated the miseries of hell, it will be clear that there is nothing comparable to the harm caused to desirous beings, even by weapons, poisons, fire, ravines, and foes. There's a monk right now at Root Institute, old student of Lama Yeshe. He was married, had kids, everything. Now he's a very good monk. He was told by Rinpoche to do long retreats on the stages of the path teachings. And he said he paid particular attention on the hell realms, did a lot of meditation on the hell realms, on the hellish states of suffering. And had a powerful effect on his mind. He was giving those teachings last year at the Kopan course. Not last year, the year before, 2021. Anyway, recently, maybe 2021. Yeah, anyway. So, and then like in music or whatever, like in orchestral music, you have very powerful section, and then you kind of have a very lyrical, beautiful, flowing melody, and that's what happens now in verse 85. Having in this way developed disillusionment with desire, I should generate joy for solitude. The fortunate ones stroll in peaceful forests, devoid of disputes and disturbing conceptions. They live in joyful houses of flat, vast stones, cooled by the sandal-scented moonlight, fanned by the peaceful, silent forest breeze, thinking of what is of benefit for others. Wow. What do we think about? Oh man. Oh dear. ये कब मिलेगा वो कब मिलेगा ये हो रहा है वो हो रहा है ये ठीक नहीं है वो. Tormented by the past and the future, not present in the present. How often do we just think, how can I benefit other people? How can I benefit others? They dwell for as long as they wish in empty houses at the feet of trees and in caves, having abandoned the pain of clinging to and guarding possession. They abide independent, free of care, living as they choose, desireless, having no ties with anyone. Even the powerful have difficulty finding a life as happy and content as this. There's a great story in one of Thich Nhat Hanh's books, story of Bhadika, I think it's Bhadika, who is a newly ordained monk, and he's meditating with the other monks at the bamboo grove, very beautiful place you can still see in Rajgir, not far from Bodh Gaya. And he seems to be, and during meditation, without being able to control himself, he keeps on saying, oh, how wonderful, oh, how wonderful, things like that. And the other monks think that he's remembering his former days as a governor. He was governor of a province, a very important man. This person is now a monk. And he's saying, oh, and they start feeling sorry for him. And they're also feeling disturbed because he keeps on saying this while he's meditating. He's making these noises, and they think he's upset, and thinking about his past wonderful life, and that, he should just leave. So they complain to the Buddha. And then the Buddha calls Bhadika and says, Bhadika, could you please explain your behavior? And Bhadika says, Lord, when I was a governor, I had a lot of wealth and, status and so forth, but always miserable due to anxiety of my position, due to fear of being attacked or murdered, and this, that, and the other. He had so many problems being governor of a particular region in somewhere in Magad area, I guess. And so now, Lord, when I sit and I meditate with your monks in this peaceful place, I'm just so happy, so happy. I say, how wonderful, how wonderful. So Lord, then he said, if I've upset any of your monks or Sangha, please forgive me, like that. And the Buddha praises him, saying, Balika, well done, well done. Even, then he says, even the gods don't have this kind of joy that you are feeling as you practice with the monks. Anyway, so yeah, Shantideva is saying, consider a totally different way of living, thinking and living. Yeah. Okay, we can have some discussion for a while. Well past my Bodh Gaya lunchtime, but I'm not in a hurry to eat. So I hope you're not all too hungry. If you are, कुछ है पीछे बिस्किट वगैरह है लोगों के लिए कल का नमकीन पता नहीं कहाँ रहा बांट लो थोड़ा Any questions, any comments? Tashi, Naveen, Jagmohan, Samira, Nivita, anybody here? Sir?
I was online.
You were online and you came here. What a great thing. What's your name, sir?
Devidas.
You are Devidas. Wow. I don't know anyone who started online and then came. We used to have Naveen would be online and here, but he wouldn't be elsewhere and then come. So you are the first, sir. Thank you. Naveen ko bata raha hu, wo hai baitha hua. Wo hai, wo thoda dubla gaya. Have you got thinner in the last few days? Are you on a fast? Naveen ji?
No, Kabir, I had fallen sick. So.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I'm fine now.
You've lost some weight.
Yeah.
Wow. You're with your mother still?
Yeah. Kabir.
I hope you get better. But stay there for a while. It's very cold in Delhi. There's no point coming up here now.
Yeah, I'm reading, and just the reading itself is getting me cold.
It's raining there? No.
No, it's very pleasant.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'd love to be in the hills of Kerala at the moment. Yeah. Aur sunaiye. Jagmohan ji? Oh, good grief. We have Tashi joining from Seattle or Vancouver or somewhere. He's another insomniac like me. What are you up at this time for? Or maybe it's your evening. Your evening. Very good. Jagmohan ji, kuch कहना है?
नहीं बस थैंक यू.
अब आपका उम्र हो गया आप जंगल में जाने का.
अच्छा संन्यास संन्यास धारण करे हैं.
दिल्ली में है 2-3 जंगल, वहां जाइए. दिन में वहां जाइए, रात को घर आइए.
Oh, next time I meet you, I'll take down the location.
वो गूगल मैप में मिलेगा भाई साहब, सब गूगल मैप में है.
अच्छा गूगल मैप में मिलता है.
उसमें सब कुछ है. यहाँ नहीं है गूगल मैप.
Anyway, it will be a nice change.
For me.
Keep home. What else? TK. Who's TK? Oh yeah, Navinji, Nivita, Tashi, anything? Anybody here? No? Okay. Anything crystal clear? Accepted as gospel truth? Nilashi, anything? No? I'm just remembering, we had a cleaning session here yesterday, quite rearranging and cleaning. And Maitreya had the equivalent of a foot pedicure session. Accumulated dust of probably, yeah, ever since Maitreya's been here. Maitreya used to sit over there, just totally neglected, right there, before we had this new altar. Anyway, his feet hadn't been cleaned probably for 30 years properly. So they were cleaned yesterday properly, in between the toes. That's important. You can't just clean the top of the foot, you clean in between the toes. That's where the dirt came up. So Nilashi kept on asking for water, which kept on turning black. She applied it between toes in place. Yeah. Now one has to take care of one's own toes, statues and everything. What are these? What? They're little Buddhas of various kinds. Some are Buddha, some are Tara, some are deities. The three together are three long life deities: Tara, Nisha Vijay, and Gaius, all in one. These are those tatsas, or tata would be what in English? Would be a clay tablet from a mold. Well, it is a kind of a prototype. Called, yeah. Why so many? What would you think if there's only one? You'd be looking for it. Well, I'd say there's a asa here, and you'd be looking everywhere. It's like saying, why don't you have a small statue of Maitreya, maybe size of your little finger? वो भी ठीक है, लेकिन जचेगा नहीं ना. And then Nilashi wouldn't be able to clean his feet so well. Too small. बड़ा चाहिए. Sometimes big is beautiful, sometimes small is beautiful. Sometimes many is good. But yeah, some people don't like many. That's okay. No problem. These are all artifacts. The Buddha himself says that he is not a form, he is not a sound, not a color. The Buddha himself said that in the Vajrakata Sutra. That's obvious. But we uninstructed worldlings, we need inspiring images to help our minds. Some of us, not all of us, some of us, if we're put off by it, we don't need to look at it. if you're the Taliban, you blow them away. And when I think His Holiness and also another Lama was told about it, they didn't show any deep shock or concern. Okay, so how do you expect the Taliban to behave? Of course they're gonna, huh?
It was the people, the local people.
Yeah, they minded because their tourism went also, and because they got used to these Buddhas generation after generation. But yeah, it's a world heritage is lost, but makes no difference to the Buddha or to any real practitioner, whether there's a Buddha statue there or not. But yeah, for ordinary people, statues help create what is called merit or punya, just by looking at them. So in a sense, it's good to have a lot of holy objects around. Thanks for coming. Bye. Yeah, it's good to have holy objects around because it creates an imprint. So like this tanka has been with Tushita for so long, you know, this one has been with us for so long. It leaves a good imprint. You know, it's got the Buddha, it's got Thousand Arm Avalokiteshvara, and it's got Padmasambhava. So that's a good imprint to have on one's mind, rather than Mickey Mouse or Coca-Cola or Brad Pitt or whoever. Although, you know, Angelina Jolie. It's they have a certain impact on the mind, but not the impact that the Buddha has. And all of them. Yeah? I mean, that goes for every image here is designed to have a positive impact on the mind, whether we realize it or not. And this is, of course, hard for us to accept because we have certain imprints from past lives, as well as basically scientific so-called materialist education, which looks down on anything that cannot be ascertained by the five senses and ordinary mind. What else, folks? अजीत जी कुछ बताइए, आप भी बहुत कहानी जानते हैं.
But I was really reflecting the depth of the compassion that we really talked about. You know, one incident that you really mentioned, the spirits. His Holiness was there, and he did the meditation of compassion. It's so powerful. I mean, the depth. Normally, I think my meditation is really difficult. One has to really see that it is a deep flow. And I was sharing another incident with His Holiness. He was traveling in the countryside, and he found that in the market, he felt so strongly their suffering that the lines came on his neck. You know? So I think.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
recently, I think one of the great neuroscientists is Mr. Ramachandran. He has really shown that how the mind could really transmit the energy. So what he has done is, I think I sent that clip to you also. So he put his two hands on the table, one of the person, and he put another artificial.
yes.
Yeah, I sent that clip. I don't know whether you have seen that. Then he said that, okay, you keep on thinking about that third arm, which is not really organic, but it is really there, it is full. And suddenly he brings the hammer and then he gets a shock, you know.
That was very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's indicating that how the mind can really transmit itself, the energy and get correlated. Probably that is one way of really seeing that. When we are saying that unconditionally can be related to everyone. So in that transmission, I think we are sending the energy of love and compassion unconditionally. And hence, I think we would be feeling the suffering of the other.
Mm.
Otherwise, there's no point if the mind is not relating with the others.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's that sense that also the spirit or whatever was involved also wanted love.
Yeah, yeah.
Deep down,
Yeah.
somewhere, the Buddha nature of that spirit who has Buddha nature responds to loving kindness and compassion, and gave up its, cheeky ways or whatever it was doing at that point.
And,
There were,
yeah. And I think, I don't remember who said that they wanted to get a plot of land where they wanted to set up some monasteries or some dharma center. So these people, they really found that they were not really getting a very good vibe there somehow, not very comfortable. And then their Lama, he meditated. He said that no, don't disturb their place. That is the land of the Gandharvas.
yeah,
The Gandharvas are there. So
they are the celestial musicians
yeah,
or something.
celestial mission.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more than we can see, isn't
I
there?
think it's a really very good. Now, a lot of this psychology, neuroscience is really working out. Earlier, I think the people were not really accepting their mind. But now, not only that, they have experimented and they are using phrase like cognitive rigidity. And then they said that, yes, I think the whole thing is that we should really bring the cognitive flexibility. I think this expression clearly shows that there's a recognition.
Yep.
But with the coming of the artificial intelligence, I think those people in the IT may be able to say, I think the world is really going to be topsy-turvy. I don't know how. Somebody was showing me the app. You put, 2 or 3 words like murder, the police, maybe like in Delhi, and write a story.
It's called Chat GPT.
Yeah, GPT. So the whole story is written by it.
It's writing the songs as well.
It's writing the song also. So
Christmas
you
song,
will have no role target. Yeah. So the human creativity.
Yeah, one has to, in some way leave such places where the mind gets disturbed by all of this and not have anything to do with it. If one cannot change it. If we can change it, good, but otherwise stay away from what one's conscience says is a contamination. If you like it, that's your choice. Stay with it, But if not, develop some other oasis somewhere.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is that this progress where what is this leading us to? Ultimately going to this level of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from a village. I
That's
find
right.
that my generation or my father's generation, they didn't have much of an education of what we really call. I really feel that the community was so well knit.
Yeah.
Yeah, one event in any home is a event of everyone. So I think no education, not much education, but still the life so beautiful. Here, so many supporting systems, but the life is really becoming very narrowed down, very straight-jacketed.
Yep.
Our village, I've grown from a village and also, if there used to be marriage, everybody used to pull in the resources. It used to be taken care very well,
Right.
including utensils and not many things. And then that used to be a general affair. So the father never used to be burdened. That thing is slowly.
Kahan tha
fading.
ye?
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. Which district?
We
Veed. Yeah. Yeah, the further we get away from nature, the more we are so-called educated, the more we want to leave home and natural environments and go and live in artificial environments and get sick and make a mess of the whole world. One way of putting it.
And that is why this concept of gross national happiness was
Yeah.
introduced.
Yeah.
For thing. When we saw it that despite of so much of development, why people are still suffering.
Yep.
That is why they went back to conservation of forests,
Mm.
sustainable development.
In Bhutan, no?
Yeah.
Have you been?
I'm going there.
Go, yeah, it's very beautiful still. Go before, yeah, there's things unfortunately happening there too, but yeah, I think probably still pretty good. They're growing fast, their cities, but their towns still very beautiful,
It's carbon negative.
pristine, huh?
It's a carbon negative country.
Still, yes, I think so, yeah. Okay. Shall we? Stop then? 2.5. You got your money's worth today. So thank you very much. Oh, Kundrol, you had your operation? You look like you're in hospital. How are you? Can you hear me? Good, good, very good. Someone who's supposed to have had an operation in Delhi, but last minute our teacher said, no, don't have it done. So he went to Nepal and then he went home to the US. He had the operation done a few days ago. Good. Well, send me a WhatsApp, okay? With the up-to-date information. Good to see you. Okay, let's dedicate now. I think we had a good session. So we can dedicate that we begin to understand what Geshe Rabten was talking about when we spoke about the correct attitude to have and how to live a life where we don't develop a lot of wind imbalance and so forth, how to deal with it, and how to put energy into listening, reflecting, and meditating. And then to see clearly how we exhaust ourselves with meaningless pursuits in this life, and how with a fraction of that effort we could attain awakening, which is a state of perpetual happiness in which we spontaneously work and benefit others. So may we take these teachings to heart and understand them at a deep level. May we never be separated from authentic teachings and from the great teachers we have still in this world. May they have long and healthy lives. May all their Dharma wishes be fulfilled. May anyone we know who are sick or ill or lonely or upset, may their minds be pacified. May those who have died have positive, smooth transition to good future life, where they can continue or where they can meet with the teachings. And may we always have proximity to spiritual friends, Kalyan Mitras. And may we quickly arouse this awakening mind of Bodhichitta for the sake of all the kind mother sentient beings. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone. Well, there's another session tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. India time. Hope to see some of you there. Meanwhile, good to see old friends here. Kundrol, Tashi, Corona Saab, and Naveenji. So take care and yeah, see you all soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye from the Buddhas and everyone here. Yeah. Hmm.